We are Gold Ivy, a health company dedicated to simplifying health and wellness. The industry is lacking the honest experience and grit required to overcome the struggle, and we're here to fill that gap.
You decide what works for your daily life and how to transform our lessons into your gold. Join us on the fearless pursuit of self-discovery and growth.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
A Gold Ivy production.
Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome back. You are listening to Ivy Unleashed, a Gold Ivy production.
Yes, we've had an awesome couple weeks, some road trips, some events. It's taken off, and we're very grateful for all of you that have shown support and are inviting us to events and pouring out the love. We feel on top of the world right now.
Yeah.
We're just so grateful.
Yeah, and we are creating some more exciting things in the near future, so stay tuned. We're in a very exciting planning stage that I'm very excited to share with you guys. Not just yet, but stay tuned.
Yes. And today is a big day, I feel, of reflection. I think this episode's going to be really personal, and we want it to be really personal for you too, to really dig deep into, you know, you're going to be hearing our stories, our perspectives, our experience. But as you're listening, I hope that you can think about how it applies to you, or what message you're hearing, or reflecting on in your life how you've had to build resilience, because being a human is hard. And
say it again for the people in the back.
Being a human is hard. And I think that it's got me thinking a lot about being a child and how I have children, and how naturally as human beings, we are resilient creatures. And it's got me thinking of how much resilience is necessary. It's got me thinking about, you know, what I went through, what was necessary for me to go through. It has me thinking about how privileged I am. It has me thinking about a lot of things. And so I want that for you guys too, as you're listening, to think about, what have I experienced in my life that has been really hard or really easy? And maybe I don't have a ton of resilience I've had to create in my life or build this skill. And so we're going to talk in general about what categories there are of resilience. We're going to be talking about some skills you can build to help with this in the future. And we're also going to be talking about our experience, in hopes that, you know, when you do face some adversity, that you've got some skills in your back pocket, or you can think about how you're already a badass and you're going to be just fine.
You know, we're always going to face adversity, whether we have in the past or it's coming. We can't run from it. It's life. And the first step in really figuring out how to handle this or even tackle this topic with any topic is awareness. And so starting off by just inviting you guys to think about your life, how you got to where you are, what that looked like, the challenges you've had to overcome, how proud you are, and to hold space for that. But then to also think about where you want to go. And to do anything new and exciting, it's going to be challenging. But as we've said multiple times, and we'll say it again, there is no growth without discomfort, no growth in the comfort zone. And so we're going to give you guys some tools that have helped us to build resiliency. And when we think of resilience, what comes to mind? And we have to start with our stories first. But before that, we want to just define it. What the hell is this word that we're talking and about to get emotional and all these feelings about? So most common definition is positive adaptation despite adversity. So adapting to the shit thrown your way. Blunt. A little more eloquent definition by licensed social worker Katie Hurley. She said, resilience is not a trampoline where you're down one moment and up the next. It's more like climbing a mountain without a trail map. It takes time, strength, and help from people around you. And you'll likely experience setbacks along the way, but eventually reach the top and look back at how far you've come. Like Miley Cyrus said, life's a climb, but the view's great. It's all about that climb. What are we learning as we're climbing this mountain called life?
And thinking about climbing that mountain, there's a lot of aspects to resilience. It's not just one big bucket. There's lots of different ways to approach it and different ways you can build resilience. And Katie Hurley, you were just mentioning, she talks about the different aspects of resilience. So there's the psychological, emotional, physical, community, and individual. So psychological is people who exhibit psychological resilience. They develop coping strategies and capabilities that enable them to remain calm and focused. So thinking of the psyche. Emotional resilient people, they understand what they're feeling and why. Physical refers to the body's ability to adapt to challenges. And then community refers to the ability of groups to get through something. So, you think of like the mass shootings, you think about 9/11, things like that, that, the community comes together and moves through this difficult time. But today what we're going to talk about and really try and focus in on is the individual focus, what we've been through in our life, and hopes that you'll reflect too and give you some tools to help build those skills for when you do face some adversity.
Speaking of the individual, let's dive in, get to the good stuff, the vulnerable stuff. I want to invite everyone who's listening to close their eyes.
Unless you're driving.
If you're driving, don't. Just think about where you are now. Think about your life, what it involves. Think about how you got here, the steps you had to take to get here, how proud you are of everything you've accomplished to get here. And now think about the crud, the mud that you had to get through, the challenges you had to overcome, the mountains you had to climb, and where you were in those moments. What pulled you through? What got you through? Because a lot of the times we don't like to think about the hard times. We like to put our emotions, shove them in the closet, and go for that next goal, that next challenge, something we're guilty of, right? Not taking time to reflect and think about the hardship. But we want to challenge you guys to look at it a different way. Look at it as strengths-based. In those moments, what was going on in your head? Who were you surrounding yourself with? What did those people offer you that helped you climb that mountain? Think about yourself as a child and where this resilience started. Because you have built resilience, whether you've gone through a lot of hardships or maybe you've had a pretty privileged life. We acknowledge that we have privilege being white women. And we have gone through hardship in our life. We have built tools in our toolkit that have helped us get to where we are now. And that's what we want to share with you guys. We don't want to compare our story to your story. That is not the point of this episode. This point is to offer how we get out of bed when we don't want to, when we've lost someone that we love, when we've been abandoned, when we've lost a child. What gets us through? Life is tough. We weren't meant to do it alone. And this is the purpose of this episode. Yeah. So buckle up.
Buckle up is right. I think you kind of have to go back to the beginning of your life and think about where it all starts. And it's so scary as a parent to do this, because this is actually something I'm working through with therapy, is that I am so scared of what I'm doing and the actions I'm taking and the way that I'm treating my kids and the words I'm using and the way I'm disciplining and how it's going to affect them. Because we all know from self-growth work that your inner child is with you forever. Mm-hmm. And it determines, the first 5 years of your life are pivotal for how you trust people, for how you interact with people, for your ability to even live a big, beautiful life, and I think it's so unfair to children sometimes, because it's like, everyone's like, oh, it's okay. Children are resilient. They'll be fine. It's like, actually, they're not. And actually, our society sucks at taking care of people's emotional needs later with therapy. Like, it's so hard to address that inner child as you become an adult because of the stigma and because of the lack of resources. So I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I feel like it's valid, and my therapist says it's valid, but also let's talk about what you are doing to help your kids feel safe, and that they do have the guidance that children need and all of those things. But thinking about, my experience as a kid and having to be resilient with divorced parents, I mean, that alone is a big shift. It's a big change. They break up no matter how this divorce happens. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's not. Thankfully, my parents are actually really good friends to this day. But during that time, it was super messy. It was super confusing. I was moving to different households back and forth. It was decisions on what we wanted to do. And during a time when I feel like parents should make decisions for you, and it was choosing and favoring and step parents and step siblings. And it was, to be honest, very messy. And I think about now, okay, how did I get through that? How was I okay? And what I did, and I didn't realize I was doing it at the time, was I was a super smart kid that found really reliable people. Mm-hmm. At school, I was drawn to the teachers that were married and that went to church. I chose sports, even if I was terrible at it. Like, shout out to my basketball coach in high school, Coach Board. I think I chose him because he was so structured and disciplined, because I needed structure and I needed guidance. Mm-hmm. And I knew the assistant coach, Coach Ewing, was like basically a motivational speaker. So I was like drawn to that sport. And I thought it was because I liked basketball. I was terrible. I like literally, I did make a basket in the state tournament, but I honestly think they put me in because they loved me so much. They were like, oh God, let's throw
this
Andrea
poor
in.
girl.
They literally put me in for like 4 seconds. I made a basket and it like made everybody's day.
Oh.
But anyway, I think I chose that sport because of the coaches. Yeah. And so I love that I did that. And I truly think that God directed me to those people and placed them in my life. I went to church by myself without my family because I also think I really wanted the guidance and the structure and the stability that it created for mm-hmm. me. I walked across the street starting at the age of 4 by myself. So it's just interesting to think about your resiliency. What do you choose in those moments where it doesn't feel safe, it doesn't feel secure, or you have a huge loss? You know, I think about, I've had people in my life that have had so much loss, like unfair amounts of loss, or lose a parent or a child, like way too early. And it's just so unfair. And I think about, how do you get through that? And it's like, yes, we're resilient because we're still living, mm-hmm. but I feel like, but are you thriving? Like, of course not, you know, and what gets you through it? Mm-hmm. Like, what pulls you through it? And then I think about, you know, with the divorced parents, it's like, I don't have any resentment that they got mm-hmm. divorced. You know, I think to this day, it's a gift for my family. I do think you get to the end of this messy road and there's a gift in it. And I do think I'm strong because of it. And I created awesome relationships because of it. So I am thankful for it. But in those moments, I think about, what did this do to me? Like, are all of those things why I feel like I need therapy all of the time? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But I do think it's important to go there, mm-hmm. like to put yourself in that messy situation and think about, what did I do that helped me be okay? Yeah. Who was in my circle? Who did I put in my circle? Or who came to me to help me in those moments?
But to your point, it made you who you are. You're stronger because of it. I think the message in the mess, when it comes to resilience and thinking about these things that helped us back then and why it's so important to put ourselves back then, is because we're going to face it again. We're going to face hardship. And so to know what you need, what got you through these moments in your past, what's helpful, right? It's looking to mentors, people that have a strong relationship, whether it's with faith or with their family. They have that loving, that they can provide that safety. As children, that's what we need. We need to know that we're safe. And with divorced parents and the messiness of it, or whatever happened in your childhood, if you didn't have a safe, loving home, like, that shit messes you up, mm-hmm. just to put it bluntly. But you don't realize it at the time. I think that's what's beautiful but weird. And what I'm going through in therapy is, how did I not realize that, like, that wasn't normal in the moment, right? Like, why is it taken until I'm 25 and now wanting to do this work? I hit this health journey and I'm unpacking stress and all these other symptoms I'm having that are exacerbated by stress. So like, all right, let's figure it out. And it's peeling back all of these layers of my childhood that I didn't know I had trauma. Like, to me, not having a dad in my life, like, that was just normal. Like, it was my norm. And it takes looking at it from a different lens, being in a different mental space now to be okay to go back there. Like now I'm in a safe place in my life with a therapist. And I think that's why therapy is so beautiful and empowering and needed, because this inner child sticks with you. These things that have been imprinted on you from a young age, it's in your subconscious. You don't even know it. Like these memories start flooding and you're like, what the hell? Like I've been carrying this with me for 25 years. Like, oh, it's wild, but you're in this new space, this new headspace, and you guys listening too right now, to go back to where you were as a child and to think about what you had. Like similar to you, Andrea, I had teachers that reached out to me and cared about me and, knew what was going on behind the scenes. And I was drawn to that. I was drawn to being busy in sports and school, academics, but I was always trying to prove something. And that trying to prove something has made me proud of who I am. It's given me the grit that I have and all these things I'm proud of, but it also affected me in really interesting ways that I'm now learning about.
I've learned too in therapy that we create these patterns from our childhood, right? Mm-hmm. So if we have a parent that's emotionally unavailable, we tend to find partners that are emotionally available, right? Or if you're an achiever to get the attention when you're younger, you continue to keep achieving. Like you said, and it's your subconscious. Yeah. Like you're doing things without even realizing you're doing them. And so I think it's important to think about like, what was I doing as a kid? Maybe your parents were awesome and they were home, but you had multiple siblings. How did you get their attention? So what are you still doing? Mm-hmm. Are you just giving because then you get praised for being the person that gives all the time? Like what is it that you did to cope with what you didn't get? And this is not to throw a pity party or be a victim at all. It's just to think about, how am I wired?
Yeah.
What served me well? What maybe could I let go of? Or just observing like, these are my tendencies and it's okay.
Yeah.
But how can I use my strengths to push through when adversity hits again?
Totally. Yeah, it's crazy to think about what's wired in us as children, what's imprinted on us, right? For me, it was being go, 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 so that I didn't have to think about what I was missing as a child or deal with those emotions. But taking it one step further, I think it was I wanted to be seen, right? Like there's a reason that I worked so hard that I wanted to be on varsity dance as a freshman, to be at my brother's games, who my dad went to but didn't come to any of my stuff. If I didn't go to therapy, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Whoa.
There's a reason that I was valedictorian, because my dad always asked about school, and that's something to think about. All these things that I didn't realize until I got sick, right? I was in Florida and my body was like, psych, like slow the hell down. Like you're going way too effing fast for your life right now. Like you can only run so fast. And I always say that's my message in the mess, is like your body's catching up to you. Your body knows way more than you do. Like you need to listen to your body. And so it was a blessing, but it sucks. And it's causing me to unpack all of this. And you talk about your partner, right? And who you had. And I have the fear of the people around me leaving. Like that's just in me, and that's that hardwired, and it gets me uncomfortable, and I don't want to go there, but I have to. And my boyfriend now, anything's wrong, he immediately calls me and wants to fix, and it's so uncomfortable for me because I never had that. Mm-hmm. And it's this self-sabotage of like, I don't want to talk right now. Like I'm pushing you away because this is foreign to me.
And that's what you're going to do anyway. So I'll just push you away myself so that you don't have to do it.
So I can protect myself. Like what can I control? And up until this point, like that's been my resiliency. Like that's what has gotten me through, of like, I'm going to make myself proud. I'm going to do this all on my own. I don't need you. And now thinking about it and getting to this inner child in me and being like, you need that. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't do this shit alone. Mm-hmm. Like, this is so hard. And there is nothing wrong for asking for help, but you think there is because you've never had anyone to help you. Mm-hmm. Like, and not to take away from my mom and my grandparents and the people that I had. in my life because I'm so grateful for them. But there's something about
you need your dad. You need your dad. Like everybody needs their mom and they need their dad. Your whole life. It doesn't ever end. It's the inner child is in you and it's missing. It's a hole.
Yeah. So it's funny that this is our topic this week because my therapy session on Monday, my therapist called me resilient. She said, you cannot teach grit. You cannot teach this. It is through adversity and it sucks, but it's something to be proud of. And then we worked through it and it was effing hard. Mm-hmm. But we came to this realization that is so wild, and it just proves this how impactful this imprint in your childhood is on you and why it's so important to recognize and be aware of these tendencies that you have. So I have these gut issues, right? And working through them, working with a specialist, trying to figure it out. And we're talking about the feelings that come with that of not feeling well with my gut brings me back to this place, my inner child, of anger and grieving the loss of a parent that should be helping me. And it was this full circle moment of wanting to get well so bad, doing this all on myself, being go, 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 and not being able to just surrender and allow people to help me because of how uncomfortable it is and how I have trust issues because the person that I was supposed to trust the most, I don't. And it's figuring out, how do I unattach these hard wires in me that are keeping me where I am and allowing me to not keep building resilience? Because I think that it's making me stronger and, using this as pride of who I am. I got through all these things. Yeah, kudos to you, but it's also hurting you. So how do we move past this? So we're aware of where we are because of our childhood, and now what?
Well, I think the space that you're in and where I am is that there's a person that loves you a lot that's there for you to help you. And it's hard not to have your trust issues affect them. And they will, but they'll love you through it if they're the right person. And I think that by Ian calling you the second that something's wrong, he's showing you like, right. I am here. And if there's any problem, I got you. I'm not going anywhere. And I think that's just who he is. I think that he's in your life for a reason. I think he's an angel. I love you, Ian. And also with Justin, I mean, I still have issues totally trusting him that he has good intentions. Sometimes I assume that he has these bad intentions with things because I want to be ready to be hurt. Mm-hmm. I'm ready for it. I know you're going to hurt me, and here it is. It's coming. This is how you think. I already know. And he's like, I actually was not thinking anything like that, and it's so you're protecting yourself. Mm-hmm. And so, we talk about the brain all the time. And I think it's a combination of, for me, it's a combination of faith, knowing I'm already loved unconditionally. So just stop needing it so much from anybody else. You're good. Mm-hmm. He's got my back. And then it's a combination of therapy to kind of just be aware and to work through things. And then I do think it's like self-growth outside of that, where I'm thinking of the book by the holistic psychologist, How to Do the Work, where she literally talks about the inner child and just learning more about how you're wired outside of needing the therapist once a month or every couple of weeks, right? Because you have the option to be free from these things and to continue to work through them and to get to more of a peaceful, loving place with not just other people, but with yourself and the adversity that you have faced or that you still are facing, or the unexpected things that are happening, how you can work through them. And I mean, we all just got a curveball thrown at us with COVID, and the resiliency people had to endure during that, with being maybe in an unsafe space or with your family all the time, where maybe you weren't as aware of everybody's quirks or
alone. And then you're realizing the mental space that you're really in when you don't have these distractions. That's totally what it was for me. Yeah. Think of how hard this work is. And we always talk about like, why are we the people that just have to dig deeper and like be better? And why can't we just be satisfied where we are? Well, that's not who we are, because we realize that there's infinite possibilities of where we can take our lives, and we can do better and be better so we can serve better. And it takes acknowledging the space that you're in, where you came from, and working through those so that you can be better.
So that there can be abundance instead of you continually thinking about how you were a victim in the past. I think it's like you can't have closure with it if you don't acknowledge it. Like, I'm at a place with my parents that's beautiful. You know, I was just sitting at Justin's family's cabin on a beach between my parents that like drove there together. And it's just like, it's wonderful because we've worked through all of the uncomfortable feelings, or, you know, my parents have owned their mistakes. Like, they've worked through it. They own it themselves. They've apologized to us kids, and they're friends. And so it's like, I think you have to have that in order to move through it. Maybe not from them, but for me to maybe forgive them in my own brain and get to that inner peace. So I do think that there's a piece of it that you can have abundance in your life. You can chase your dreams and you can do all these things. But I do think if you don't acknowledge all the hardship
and what's holding you back.
Yes.
How do you push past when you don't even know why you're stuck?
That's a great question.
And also, I just have to say, I told my therapist Monday, I just get so frustrated that I'm doing the work that the people who caused me to do the work should have been doing on them themselves.
It's so true.
It's like, but it's making me better.
But if you get to a peaceful place, you won't need it anymore. If you get to that place.
Oh, I think I'm always going to. Like, can I just see you every week for the rest of my life?
No. I'm not saying you don't need a therapist. I'm saying you won't need any validation from someone else. If you keep doing this work on yourself, you're going to be so zen. You're going to be Gabrielle Bernstein hanging out, and your peace, and your just everything is love, and all you have less resentment. And I think that's the goal for me, is like, get rid of the resentment, get rid of the victim mentality. Think about how I can help other people build resiliency that have less fortunate lives than I do. Or, you know, the work we're doing with YouthLink, it's, you know, Brooke and I are at YouthLink the other day, and we're doing it's a homeless shelter in the Twin Cities. And we are doing a workout. And, you know, I, as a personal trainer, have to think about form and, you know, making sure you do your lunge correctly.
And modifications.
It's modifications. Never in my life or never in my education have I been trained on how to adjust someone's form due to gunshot wounds and scarring. And it was a very humbling moment of just thinking like, wow, any hardship I've gone through, like it just gave me perspective. Like, for that poor girl, I have no idea what the circumstance was, but she was there, complete light.
Yes.
So happy, dancing with us and finding the joy. And that experience showed me that what I've been through, it's important to acknowledge. It is my own journey, right? But also doing this work shows me that if I can help pass on some skills to people, or to hear their stories about how they've built resilience and learn from them on how they got through that, or give free resources or whatever it may be, like, building resilience is so important in all populations. And I think, we have this individual focus now, but we can move to community, you know, we can move to emotional, we can bounce around with all these different categories.
Yeah. I think that speaks to the power of community. Having those people that not only are going to help you through the dark times, but also put things in perspective for you, to have a mix of, okay, like I'm doing okay. I am doing okay. Or like, oh man, I really need your help, to help each other.
Yeah, to help each other. And like, sometimes you just get wrapped up in your own little world. You know, you can create a problem out of anything.
Right.
You know, we get moods, we have hormones, we have all the things. Getting perspective's important. And I think hearing other people's stories, that's why we do this work also on Ivy Unleashed, is that hearing someone else's story and what they've been through just shows you like it could always be worse. Like, your story is valid, it's important. All of our stories are. But also, when you flip the attention from yourself to someone else, to hear them, to learn how they got through it, because no story is the same, gives you perspective. And then also, sometimes it gives you an opportunity to help them, you know, and they're helping you, you're helping them. And I feel like we've had more growth from going to YouthLink than we probably even helped anybody. Like,
they've helped us.
Yeah.
Yes. And it also has given us a chance to be grateful for what we have, right? When we hear someone's story of the hardships they've been through, we're grateful for what we do have. I think that's a huge part in being resilient, is focusing on the good. And that's what brings you out of these dark times. For me, when I'm struggling, gratitude and redirecting my brain and these thoughts that I'm having, stopping them in their tracks and forcing gratitude and good things has been a lifesaver.
I think a big part of what helps me as an adult now, besides my faith, is my just daily practices. You know, when I get away from my routine in the morning, I feel kind of lost. And I know that if something hard hits me, I really hope it's on a day that I've gotten some exercise. You know, I've been mindful. I've got my Bible verse in my back pocket already. You know, it probably won't. It'll hit me out of nowhere. But
it'll remind you why you need to get back to your morning practice.
Yeah, but I do think that the reason why we want to talk about this is to build those skills so that they're like a second nature thing you fall back on, because they will help you. I mean, the more you practice gratitude in those moments when it's kind of hard, it might not feel that heavy. You know, I think about you and your health, and like, you have to be resilient every day. Like, you wake up and you don't know how you're going to feel.
I've definitely built resilience these past 3-4 years. You know, I've seen, since 2017, I've seen over 50 doctors, specialists, alternative medicine. Looking back and talking to my therapist Monday about this too, what has gotten me through it? And we talked to this idea of my identity is getting well, because I haven't been well and I know what it can give me. I've surrounded myself with people who are thriving and feel good, and I don't remember what it's like to be in that spot, to wake up and be full of energy and to not have to worry about going to a party and not feeling good, or the energy it takes to get ready for the day. These things that, you know, up until this point I took for granted. And so I'm obsessed with the idea of feeling better, that it's now become my identity. And it's this weird thing that I'm working through, mourning and grieving the loss of who I was. You know, as I move forward in this journey to figuring out not only what's wrong with me, but I've switched it to, how do I feel whole? Like, what do I need in my life right now that's going to make me thrive? And not focusing on what the issue is, but what can I do? But also remembering the things that light me on fire and light my soul on fire. You know, we had an event with Nikki Lemon, who was on, about yoga, that was incredible, and it got me just back into my body. And I think that's what this whole lesson has taught me, is how do I become one with my body, my mind, my spirit, to live a life that I want to live, right? And when I think about resilience and what's got me through these past years, is I've seen people that are thriving. I've heard the stories. I know it's possible. I know what it's like. And so to just take that next step, whatever makes sense, and to know that I get one life to live. Like, I want to live it. I want to live it up. I want to make the most out of it. And it takes taking care of myself.
And some people give up in this. Some people completely give up and sit at home in their pain or trauma or whatever it is. And it sounds like what you're doing is connecting to your purpose, like you said, what lights you up, so that you can keep fighting and being resilient through this whole process. And putting things in my world that remind me of that, right? Personal development, mentors, constantly seeking out resources. And as frustrating as it is to try something and nope, that doesn't work. Okay, well, it's something to try. Like, there's always something. And that speaks to anything you're going through, whether it be mental, physical. There's always help. There's always something you can try. But not only that, surround yourself with people that help strengthen you and not weaken you. I think knowing that discomfort is a part of life and not staying there is the biggest lesson I've learned. To have these things to fall back on that get us back on track, back to feeling like ourselves, back to feeling like we have the power, whether that be people or exercise, yoga, meditation, getting clear on how do you want to feel and what does it take to get there. Yeah. And that reminds me of an article I read today on the Bounce Back Project, website, which is actually super cool. I've never even heard of this. And it's actually based out of Minnesota. So it's a team of physicians, nurses, hospital leaders, staff, and community partners in Minnesota. Super cool. And they're basically trying to help people. I don't know if it started in COVID or what, but what I read was like them trying to help build resilience in people through this time. And so they actually said on there, we've all heard the saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And they said, we also know that it's not quite that simple. Bounce Back Project said, we hope to give everyone the lemon squeezer and the pitcher so that making lemonade seems possible.
I love that.
Yeah. So they're like, it's more complicated than this. We need a few more tools.
Yep.
So they broke it down into 5 pillars to kind of help build resilience. And we want to share that with you guys. So number 1, mindfulness, a state of active, open attention on the present moment. So the more that we can stay where we are instead of thinking way too far in the future, way too far in the past, what do we have control over in this moment here? How can I adjust my day to make it better now? Purpose, the recognition that we belong to and serve something bigger than ourselves. So just like you're doing in your life, I think the more you're connecting to your purpose, it's pushing you through this,
Yeah. I'm reading The Power of Intention by Wayne Dyer right now, and I just read his chapter on purpose, and he says that it's the number one question he gets. How do I find my purpose? We've recorded an episode on purpose, and he says, just serve others, and your purpose will find you. You were created here for a reason. And when you think of the universe and this, he thinks of intention as this field of energy. And so the universe, right, it doesn't think about its next move. Like it just is. It doesn't overthink it. It just is. And so to both mindfulness and purpose, to get outside of yourself and to think about others has been a game changer as I find resilience in my health.
Yeah. And speaking of that too, like serving others, relationships. So relationships is the next pillar. By building positive relationships with others, we will be happier and more fulfilled and feel more supported, supportive, and connected.
Yeah. Which has been hard with COVID. I think a lot of people have realized that we are social creatures for a reason. We need that social connection. And as hard as it is to ask people for help, they want to help you.
For sure. And then there's self-awareness. So having a clear perception of your personality, including your strengths, weaknesses, thoughts, beliefs, motivation, and emotions. Like what drives you? What are you good at? What are you not good at? I think we touched on this earlier, but just knowing yourself so well helps you in tough times. What am I good at? Let's focus on that in this time of resilience.
And you can't know yourself unless you put the time into it. Reflecting, meditating, quieting that outer noise to realize what's going on inside me. What are my thoughts? What are my values? What makes me me?
And am I connecting to that?
Yes.
Am I doing something about that? And then the last one is self-care. We've talked about self-care. Thank you, Sonia Eklund, for also talking about self-care, episode 7. But that's active engagement in caring for ourselves, which is unique for everyone. I mean, resilience is unique for everyone too. We all have our own stories, but when it comes to self-care, it's really thinking about not just what I need on the outside. I was listening to Glennon Doyle today on her podcast on self-care, and she was talking about how a lot of times when we think about self-care, we think about this outer shell, which has a lot to do with how we're perceived by others. So we get our nails done, we get our hair done, we do these things, and that has nothing to do really with self-care. It feels good in the moment to get a massage or whatever, but she's like, truly care for your inner being. Tune into it. Take the time to listen to yourself. Get in that silence, that meditative state where you're thinking about, what is it that I need from my soul, for my soul, way deeper than that. So I think sometimes thinking about self-care, we can think about the outer shell, but I do think it's important that that's not actually going to get you through a tough time. What's going to get you through a tough time is digging deeper than that.
Yeah. Being connected to who you are, what you need, what you want. How are you going to live a fulfilling life if you're not taking care of yourself? You have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else. It's not selfish. It's essential. We all have our own experience when it comes to life, when it comes to challenges, when it comes to building resilience. What works for me isn't going to be what works for Andrea, and what works for Andrea isn't going to be what works for you, because we're all different. But I hope, and our hope, is that in this episode, you found strength to dig deep, to do the hard work, to figure out how you've gotten to where you are and what helped you specifically. There is no one size fits all when it comes to anything health related. It's the same case when it comes to resilience. Resilience is something that you can build. You're not born with it, you build it. You put time, you put effort into it, just like self-care, just like building yourself. What is going to bring you a life full of joy, happiness, peace, all of these things? What's important to you? What do you value? And how do you get there? And what are these practices that you're going to fall back on when you are struggling? What's going to get you back to this state of peace and calm and joy, being the person that you want to be? Because we're going to face hard times. It's inevitable, but you will get through it. And by digging into your past, you will see that you have gotten through it. You've gotten through so much, and you will continue to get through so much. And you have people that support you and love you. Us. We are here for you, and that is the reason that we started this. And for anyone struggling, there is help out there. Message us. Reach out. We are here, and we want to offer all of the tools that we can. We want you to tune in to what's helped you be resilient so you continue to build those skills for the next time you face adversity.
Tools and resources are what we're here to provide. I'm so glad that you said that. And I just want to remind everyone that we'll plug everything we talked about. We plugged so many resources today. We'll put them all in our blog. Brooke works so hard on our beautiful blog. So we hope that you check it out on our website. And you can find us on all social channels. We're constantly putting in Ivy reflections, tips, all kinds of different things to help you throughout your week, to elevate your week, to dig into your week, to make you laugh during your week. So Gold Ivy Health Co. on all of those social channels. Yes. All right, now it's time for our 3 gold stars.
Number 1, write down 3 experiences in your life that have required you to be resilient.
2, determine who you would go to in desperate times or who can hold space and support you in a way that you need.
3, incorporate a practice this week that you know helps calm you, creates clarity, or helps center you.
And today for your piece of gold comes from Thich Nhat Hanh. Resilient trees can weather a violent storm because their roots are deep and firm. This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.